Now, this is a fascinating subject we're going to talk about right now. It's a bit of a mouthful to say, but narcissism, I think I've said that right, is a hot topic at the moment. Books about it are everywhere, social media, where the selfie generation tends to reside. So, you know, the narc spotting has become maybe a bit of a sport. Well, what is it? How do you spot one? How do you deal with them if they're in your life? And could you be with one without realising? Maybe you know someone, you think, oh yeah, that's them. Well, James Holmes is a hypnotherapist and body language expert, and he's the director of OLIP Therapy, which is based across various sites in Hampshire, and joins me in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Carl.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure, as always. It is a word, a big word, narcissism, but it probably needs an explainer about what does it mean. You can look it up in the dictionary. Does that really tell the true story?
There are some big words around narcissism. I would say that most of the time it's wrongly diagnosed. And I think it's used a lot nowadays because it's kind of what I call a stop word. You know, if you're having a disagreement with somebody or your partner or your boss and you call them a narcissist, it's like, where do you go from that? It's kind of a stop word. But massively overdiagnosed. Around 5% of the population could be described as narcissists, but there are certain criteria. In the book, what's called the DSM-4, which is another big word, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders. In cluster B, there are, where narcissism is, there are certain criteria, and if I could kind of call them out now, if you know anybody. So if you have 5 or more of the following 9, a grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, believing that you are special and unique, requiring excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, and I think that's a key one, being interpersonally exploitative. I said those are big words, didn't I?
Yeah.
Lacking empathy, envious of others or believing that others are envious of you, and showing arrogance, haughty behaviours or attitudes. I like to simplify it to the 3 E's.
Okay.
Entitlement, exploitation and empathy, or rather lack of empathy. And if you know it's kind of like that, then you could be dealing with a narcissist. And if you are, they can be hugely destructive to your life, to your marriage, your relationship. In fact, as a therapy centre, we spend a lot of time helping people deal with the after effects of being with a narcissist, particularly because there are various types. You've got the grandiose narcissist, and I think if you see movie stars, politicians, I
was going to think famous people, you know, and then the word probably arrogance. You think, oh, he's arrogant, she's arrogant. You know, footballers maybe.
Yeah,
as well.
I was watching the part of the Grammys the other day, and it's almost like a narcissist bingo. You have the malignant narcissist, the covert narcissist, the communal narcissist. There are lots of categories. Now, you've mentioned the grandiose is the bigger personality. We can think of politicians who are like that. You know, heads of companies and corporations are very grandiose. But the worst sort, I would say, is the covert narcissist, because they're the person you don't know is a narcissist. Often females, not always, but the grandiose tends to be more male, and I guess that's an evolutionary thing.
Sure.
Whereas the covert narcissist are quiet, passive-aggressive, resentful, appearing quite modest, without craving validation. But a narcissist is all about that kind of will to power, wanting to be in control, and a huge sense of entitlement.
If you were to say to someone, you've got all those traits, and next one, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Would they? They'd deny it.
Do you know, sometimes somebody says, am I a narcissist? Not me, hopefully not. But if you're asking yourself that question, am I a narcissist? Chances you're not. Essentially, it's a spectrum disorder. We're all kind of on the spectrum of narcissism. You know, we are the most important person in our world. But if you imagine the spectrum is out of 10, we're all kind of a 1 or a 2. That's normal. That's healthy. If you're a 9 or a 10, or with somebody who's a 9 or a 10, then you've got a lot of pain in your life. Where, if you take it further, going to 11, you're talking a sociopath.
Yeah.
And perhaps beyond that, what's called the dark triad, which is sociopathy, antisocial personality disorder, and Machiavellianism.
I mean, it must be really difficult to be around someone who, I don't know, is an 8, a 9, a 10,
Yeah.
And you say pain in their life.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking what's called complex PTSD with that, because with something that's intentional. Now, if you experience PTSD, an accident, or that wasn't intentional, that's a whole different world of pain. But if you are experiencing a relationship with, and what makes it difficult with somebody in a relationship with a particular covert narcissist is, to the world they appear like the most wonderful, incredible person, because when you meet them, you have what's called love bombing. So you meet a covert narcissist, there's love bombing, you think, I've met the greatest human being on I'm so lucky. And then you're actually meeting their false self. That's not their true self. And only you, after time, get to see the real self, but the rest of the world doesn't see that. So then you have that dichotomy of dealing with almost like a Jekyll and Hyde character, which is awful for anybody to experience.
But if you're having to deal with it, what can you do about it?
Firstly, you'll go through intense pain and questioning because nobody else can see it, or very few people can see it. And often they employ what are called flying monkeys, which is a term taken from The Wizard of Oz. I have to thank my son for reminding me of this, because we were playing a Xbox game last night, and I suddenly remembered about there was a Wizard of Oz, flying monkeys. So flying monkeys are people the narcissist gets to do almost their dirty work. Again, a term taken from The Wizard of Oz. But you are dealing with a different person than the world sees. And you can't understand why the world doesn't see that person, because a particular covert narcissist or a malignant narcissist has spent their whole life in a fantasy world. You are a character in their movie. It's as if they are writing, directing, creating their own movie, and you're just a player. Everybody else, they come in contact with, is a player in their movie.
Fascinating stuff. We'll delve into it a little bit more.
Cool.
James Holmes is a hypnotherapist, body language expert as well. We'll be chatting to him about this. Joining the studio by James Holmes is a hypnotherapist, body language expert as well, director of Volip Therapy, which is based across various sites in Hampshire. And we are delving into narcissism. And I am fascinated to kind of, it's probably not a term that's like we talk about. It is a mental health condition, labelled up as a mental health condition. We hear the word mental health on the news probably every single day, but you will never hear that word. No.
Although it's become...
Apart from today,
it is more in the media than ever before. But oddly enough, it didn't appear in DSM-4, the mental health manual, to 1980. So actually it's quite recent. Okay. But it's been around for hundreds of years, the actual term,
and the rise of it, the increase of it. But I suppose there's more diagnosis for stuff going on as well. So there is that.
That is true.
That goes on.
I do believe it's on the rise, and I think that it could be traced back to the 1980s and a politician called John Vasconcelos, who had a movement to improve self-esteem. Now, outwardly, that sounds like a great idea. And he believed that the problems they were encountering to do with crime and drugs all related back to people with, or kids with low self-esteem. And they even looked to have a minister, or rather a politician in charge of self-esteem. But what happened was they got it wrong. In fact, in the UK, there was a school that followed the philosophy of Vasconcelos, and that philosophy is not allowing children to fail at anything. You can't have a test because unless you're the top, you might not feel great. And that school here in the UK, the following Ofsted, had the lowest Ofsted score it could. So that philosophy, doesn't work. But what's happened is that philosophy of entitlement in young people. It's not their fault, has kind of been propagated. So what we have now is almost a breeding ground for that thinking style. There are 5.3 billion selfies taken every day.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, my other half loves a selfie. Not of herself necessarily, but like, come on, let's have a selfie. I think I really don't want to do...
I hope you're not calling her a narcissist on air.
No, but she loves a selfie.
Yes. Yeah,
you know, and I think maybe she just wants to create the memory.
Yes, and that's perfectly normal.
And I don't like having my picture taken. No. That's just me.
Exactly, yeah. You know, it's 4% of daily photographs are selfies. But it's a generational thing. If you think of an 18 to 24-year-old, 4% of their phone will be selfies. Now that's based on some maybe have 80%, some 0%. And I think if you're in your 40s and 50s, you look at your phone and you struggle to find a selfie unless your partner's
You would on my
initiated
phone. Yeah. Apart from what she shared with me, right? It's like what you say. It is. But it's interesting that, it's a selfie, but it's just a normal part of our living.
Yes,
now.
It's been normalised by mobile technology, but that sense of entitlement is a breeding ground. If you think about in the media, most people could not tell you who won the Nobel Peace Prize last year, but they could tell you about the Kardashians. They can tell you about who won Traitors. Now, Traitors is a great show. I was on a few weeks ago talking about it. Yeah. And if you think about it, Traitors is a show that honours lying and rewards lying. So in many ways, it's the Roman Colosseum of our day. We have a fascination with other people's lives and misery, so to speak.
And there is that element of wanting to be liked on the Traitors, and I've not watched it, but, like me or, believe what I'm saying. I'm in control.
Yes. And narcissism is I'm not calling any of the Traitors a narcissist, although you can play narcissist bingo with lots of TV. But it is, sadly, it isn't treatable. In our practice, in the past 20 years, I could count on one hand the amount of narcissists that have come to us. But equally, the effects of dealing and being with a narcissist have a profound a negative effect on people's lives. So we're in many ways dealing with the effects of a narcissist, of what's happened, and it's painful.
It's been fascinating. It really opens your eyes as well. It gets you sitting thinking. James, thank you for coming in. We've run out of time. We've got to take the news in a minute.
Sure, absolute pleasure. Thanks,
love to talk to you more, of course, but hopefully we can get you back in soon as well.
That'd be great.
James Holmes, hypnotherapist, body language expert, director of OLIP Therapy, based across various sites in Hampshire. Brilliant to speak to him this morning.